Go ahead.
But look how awesome. Like, first of all,
You should wear it.
I know I should. Okay,
Go ahead,
look.
wear it.
Look how cool. So it's super warm,
Oh,
super cute, and
ketchup and mustard.
doesn't
It goes together.
really. And then it says Brian and Janelle, and so you can use it for your youth groups, family reunions, your company, ministry, all of that. So make sure to contact them.
So today we were having a bunch of different discussions based off of a study that came out of Harvard Kennedy School of
Brian
Government's Institute of Politics.
He was already intimidated just by seeing that.
Yeah, I
Some
can
smart
hardly even
kids up
say
in
that.
there.
Those words don't seem like they fit together. Anyway, they found in a survey that there's a declining number of college students who describe themselves as patriotic, which isn't exactly breaking news. I think there's generally understanding in America that college students are discontent with America.
Yeah. You know what, though? I didn't get that feeling. I don't understand why people... Doesn't it depend what your major is? We weren't talking about America. I was an engineer.
I think it depends on a lot of things. Yeah, people talk about their horrible experience in secular university and how it challenges their faith. I went to a secular university and I grew in my faith then.
But I did. I accepted Jesus. And it was... You can't get more secular than Oberlin College. You didn't tell me a story about you, how you grew in church.
No, that really,
in college.
That's where I kind of helped determine to follow Christ.
That's cool.
But I was also challenged in my thinking by a lot of professors, and I'm grateful for it. It made my faith stronger. But anyway.
I do. Oh, can I just say that, though? I think a lot of times because we're challenged and we're weak in it, sometimes we say, oh, it's challenged or against us. And you're right. I think sometimes professors want to just challenge you to be like, if you're going to believe something, defend it.
Yeah.
And we walk away just thinking,
exactly
they hate us, they hate us.
That is exactly the point. They want to teach us how to think.
Yeah.
I've told you this before, but I didn't tell you the next part of this. So I had a professor, he was a non-religious but ethnically Jewish guy, and his name was Dr. Byman. And he taught the Christian history in the history department, the history of Christianity.
Okay.
And it was basically not just Jesus, but the Christians throughout history. And a whole bunch of Christian kids would take that class, wear their Jesus shirts, thinking they're going to be in like a worship service.
Oh, man.
And the first class period, he would hit them with some scars in Christian history, and they drop like flies. He wanted to challenge their thinking. And the reason I know he didn't hate Christians is because of the final project in another class I took.
Mm-hmm.
I took the Holocaust from him. Spent a whole semester studying the Holocaust. And at the end was a paper we had to write based on a book called, I believe it's called The Sunflower, and it creates a fictitious scenario of what would you do if a Nazi soldier on his deathbed asked you for forgiveness and you were a Jewish person in a camp, a concentration camp. And all these world-leading religious experts and thinkers, all of them in the book said, no, I wouldn't forgive him, except the evangelical Christian in the book. Said they'd forgive the guy, and he talked about the gospel. And in class we discussed, all the kids brought up what's wrong with Christians. I didn't say anything. In my final paper, I agreed with that one guy. Right?
Yeah.
And if this professor hated Christians, he would have failed me, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, I got a good grade in the class. Because he just wanted me to think and defend my position.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that.
Okay.
Tangent, but good one. So what we tried to figure out in the show today was, what does healthy patriotism look like for Christians? There's a lot of unhealthy patriotism out there, whether or not you're a Christian, but among Christians. So what does healthy patriotism look like? And as part of that, Janelle had a really good question off the air we're taking to you. When it comes to Christian patriotism, should we think America is the best country on earth?
Do you have to think that to be called a patriotic American?
And again, not even necessarily for all Americans, but if you're a Christian,
Oh, okay.
right? I mean, we're talking. Should you think that America's the best country to be
Yeah.
called patriotic?
Yeah.
Yeah, you comfortable with that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I like that. Danella's here. Eva's here. What's up? Angie's here. Daniel, what's up? Callie. Hola, amiga. Mike is here. Danella says, same, Brian. I accepted the Lord heavily in high school. However, I was heavily challenged with it in secular college. It was then that I learned the Apologetic Study Bible. Non-Christian secular college caused me to study how to defend my faith.
That's right. That's right, Danella.
Yeah. Lynn says, good morning, family. You two people, what's up? I see y'all looking at us. You can comment. You can join the conversation. I see your comments. I see you sitting there. And I see you not subscribing. So make sure you subscribe because, we a family. So as many of you guys know, I'm from Dominican Republic. I was born there. Most of my family is still there. And my mom's a citizen. And we see both sides, right? Because my mom, she's like obsessed with the news in Dominican Republic. They just got a new president. He's awesome, all of that. And I see, like, for example, let's take patriotism in DR. And it's a lot of Latin America is like that. Like Puerto Ricans, it's like all about Puerto Rico and Mexico, all of that. And they can do that and still even think at the same time, oh, the United States is a great place to live, and still say, I love DR. And DR is amazing. And I'll fight for DR and I'll vote and I want DR to do better. Like, I don't understand how here patriotism, what I hear people saying is it's the best place to live in the world. It's the best country in the world. And I'm thinking there's 220 plus countries in the world. Do I have to kind of...
I see what you're saying. So you're saying there's almost an exclusivity in American view of patriotism in a broader sense, in that to be patriotic, you must think we are the best.
We are the best.
Like if there's a ranked list, we're number one.
You gotta truly believe that to say that. And intellectually speaking, I think I can honestly say in the 220 plus countries in the world, there are people living in another country that are very happy, got no desire to live here, and love their country and are completely fulfilled and they're okay. And
they think they're better than us.
They may think they're better than us. And I don't see why we can't entertain both, that there are other countries that could be just as fine. Amora says, healthy patriotism for a Christian is... Oh, wait. You shared that. That's cool. So you were talking about how it's like a brother and a sister and how they can argue. A brother and a sister can argue. However, they stand together for the common cause. And you shared a story in another country that you saw an American or a person that wasn't American talking about the United States.
Yeah.
Or disagreeing.
You mean the student thing?
Yeah, remember when that comment came up during the show, you were like, yeah, it's kind of like saying, hey, hold up, I'm an American, why are you...
Yeah, like when siblings fight, right, at the home, they're always fighting, but they still love each other. When they go out, if somebody messes with the sibling they were just fighting them with, they go, hey, you knocked that off, that's my brother. I get to hate him, you don't get to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's where I had students with me overseas that were kind of vocal when they saw some anti-American graffiti.
Yeah.
And I was like, hold up, guys. We can do our disagreements politically within our own country, but when we're around the world, that's our country. What are you doing ripping on our country,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the right thing to do, but it's what I did. But I think the larger question Janelle's asking is really a good one. It's for Christians. Should we have to think that America is the best country in the world to be patriotic?
Yeah. Sara, who is in Ecuador, her husband's from Ecuador, she says, Janelle, you're absolutely right on everything you said. I was trying to figure out how to say that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but people in Dominican Republic, because I'm from there, so I won't speak for other countries, are very patriotic and we love our country, but and we think it's amazing. But we're okay with saying, oh, the United States is a great country to live with. Or look at a Mexican that thinks it's all about Mexico and be like, hey, and cheer for them. Be like, yeah, that's awesome. Mexico's amazing to you. I don't agree with the idea that you have to think, no, this is the best country in the world. Somebody texted and said people in other countries should think that theirs is the best in order to be patriotic. Just as we know that the U.S. is the best.
So this person is saying, yes, you should think your country is number one on a ranked list of best.
Yeah.
To be patriotic.
That's crazy.
Daniel's comment's interesting.
I think some level of American exceptionalism is required in patriotism. Thinking America is the best in every individual way is kind of crazy, but best overall, sure.
How do you respond? Janelle and I talked about this in breaks before, and I thought her answer to this was pretty good. Because one of my questions is, if you don't think America's the best, why are you here? Like, if there's someplace better, why don't you go there?
That's crazy.
And that was kind of some of my prevailing thinking is like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't denigrate other countries. We shouldn't say everything else is horrible and we're great. But doesn't love of country it feels like it should be synonymous with we're better or we're best, and you had a good response to that. So how do you respond to somebody who goes, if you don't think America's the best, why don't you go back to DR?
Yeah. Okay. So you brought up, and correct me if you were asking for me to go somewhere else. When you brought up cities, I've lived in Shaker Heights for 20 years. Love Shaker Heights. I like Shaker Heights, their people, everything. Shaker Heights is amazing. The history in Shaker Heights is awesome. I know there are better school systems somewhere else. Other places are safer than Shaker Heights.
Yeah, so why don't you go there if it's better?
That's what I'm saying. I don't, because I love Shaker Heights. I love where I'm at, and I'm good. I'm comfortable saying I live here. This is my choice. And I can still look at other places and be like, oh, look, that's awesome, or they're better here. And it's kind of like my children. Let's take one of my kids, let's say the oldest. I love my child and will choose my child over and over if I had to, but I don't have to think that he's the best kid there is, the best, for me to tell myself I love my child. My love for my kid is 100%. And it has nothing to do with him being better than other kids.
So you're not saying you dislike America. What you're saying is that there's plenty of other great places to live, and you're not willing to call us the best in a ranked list. You love it here.
Yeah.
There's other great places too.
And they don't have to be related. Me thinking it's best, I don't think has anything to do with me saying I love America. You can love America and be like, it doesn't have to be the best in a rank. Like it's best for me, I could say. Best for me. It doesn't have to be the best country in the world. Lynn says, just wondering, how do people who have to flee their countries feel about them? Just wondering.
It's a good question. I think a lot of people leave their countries in the midst of turmoil, and they probably long for the way it used to be. And they love their country in spite of the current problems.
Recently, I learned about a story of a man. His name is Peña Gomez. And he was a Dominican, and his family had to flee Dominican Republic. And his mother stayed out there. He never met his mom. Really sad story. They had to flee to Haiti. He came back, fought for his country, like in terms of politics, and ran for presidency and was into politics to improve the country. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you can have to flee or have to leave and still say, I love my country and I want to make it better, or I wish it was better.
But there probably are people who go, I'm done. I can't be here anymore. This place is horrible. That place is better.
Yeah. Yes, there are.
Like there are people who would probably say, I left my country because America is better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm looking at YouTube, and Ken on YouTube says, wanted to listen on this issue since I'm political science guy. I'm thinking we as Christians should be sober about American exceptionalism. What do you think he means by that? I think true patriotism is like any other form of godly love. Do we sacrifice ourselves for the betterment of our country and people? Do we look down on those from other countries?
Those are great questions. Sober about American exceptionalism. I'm assuming, Ken, what you mean is like we got to be careful how we talk about that. It's one thing to think America's exceptional and better than other people, and it's another to talk about it real brazenly and uncaringly to make it sound like everybody else is horrible. And I think that's what you're pushing up against.
Yeah.
He also asked two other questions I wanted to get to. Can you click back? He asked, do we sacrifice ourselves for the betterment of our country and people? I think that Christian love is sacrificial.
Yes.
So Christian love that sacrifices for a country they love would be sacrificial. That seems congruent to me. Mm-hmm. Do we look down on those from other countries? I think the answer is no.
If you feel like you're the best, wouldn't that make you do that slowly?
But that's why I think Ken is saying we've got to be sober about American exceptionalism. It's you can say, I think America's a special place. There's no place like it. Arguably, there hasn't been a more effective type of freedom in the world ever. That's American exceptionalism. But then wouldn't you have to say, but there's a lot of other really great places to live in the world.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, therefore, we're better than everybody.
Yeah.
There seems to me to be Ken's hesitation, and I think there's some biblical support for that idea.
I love the comments coming in. I see you, Anthony, on YouTube. Ken, others, please continue to comment. But Sarah says, We know, in response to people who flee their country, she says, we know many Venezuelans and Colombians who have had to flee their countries and love those countries deeply. And Janet says, she's hashtag Team Brian, by the way. My dad fled from Yugoslavia and came to America, became a citizen, and was drafted and fought for
Wow.
America. He never wanted to go back after fleeing from the Russians during that time.
Yeah. And that's the other type of person fleeing persecution from government that I was talking about, is there will be people who leave their country because they think another country is tangibly better.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And that's fine. I guess I also look at, like, out of all the countries, like, God made all of them. You know, like, there's different cultures, there's different people. So I just don't think it's right for me to say, no, this one's the best. Like, I almost see kids saying, no, I'm the best.
Because
there's diversity, and God made the different cultures, and everything's a different color, and sounds differently, and looks differently. And it's all good and great and awesome. And so if it's good for me and the best for me to say, no, objectively speaking, this is the best country, I just don't think is appreciative of, well, God made all of it, and he said it was good.
So you're almost equating it with not just my country's better than yours, but I'm better than you.
I think it comes off that way. And I don't like that it's being equated to patriotism, because then it makes people like me, like, it's a very narrow view of patriotism. You can love a country and be like, okay, you think it's the best, that's not what I'm saying.
I like how Ken was pressing us on YouTube towards, like, thinking about, like, believing in American exceptionalism isn't inherently bad. It's just how you communicate it. Like, to the opposite end of your point.
Yes.
Could someone think objectively, based on style of government, the way freedom works, our history, that they believe our system and ours is better than everybody else?
Someone can
Could you
believe that. What I struggle with is when people say, if you don't believe that, then you don't love this country. That's my issue.
So you're not disagreeing with the idea of American exceptionalism.
Right.
It's making it a requirement.
Right. That's the issue.
Okay.
Mike says, isn't country synonymous with government? Is it?
I think it depends, Mike. Do you mean ideologically government, or currently who holds majority control of government?
Sarah says, if I, as a believer, carried around the attitude that my country is the best, my testimony will be ruined. I love the United States. There are billions of people, thank you, living in other countries who live thoroughly fulfilling their lives. Right, and they're fine, and that's good.
So you and Sarah are saying the better Christian message of patriotism is, this is a great country, and there's other really great ones too.
I think so.
But there's bad ones.
There are bad ones, yes. There are bad ones.
We're not saying all
It's
countries.
To say the best. That's what I struggle with.
Okay.
Sarah says, I think a lot of Martin Luther King struggle with this feeling as well. Or MK struggle, the Martin Luther King. They love the U.S. and they love...
Missionary Kid, I think.
Missionary Kid. They love the U.S. and they love the country where they spent their childhoods.
Yeah.
You know what comes to mind? There was a time we used to love... I don't do it now because I live here, and so it's not happening here. Dominican Festival in Rhode Island every August. And it was so cool. And they would have, like, well-known orchestras or artists and women in typical, we call them typical dresses, which are like the cultural dresses. It's a celebration of Dominican culture. And there was one year Len went and he was like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. First, it blew his mind, the nationalism, like the whole we love DR. You saw flags everywhere and it's the honking of the horn and just Dominicans happy. And that year that Len was there, for a moment he saw on one side of the streets there were Dominicans and on the other side there were Puerto Ricans in our what is the festival, and they were just holding up their signs and we were like putting the music up and everybody was cheering for their country and it was good. You know, it wasn't this whole competition of which one's better. Daniel says, I'd still vote no because I can imagine an Iranian who loves their country but dislikes the regime and their rules.
Still vote no. So he's saying we should not think America is the best. Yeah, you know, because it is, his point is, I'm a little confused, but I think his point is that you can love your country and think the current regime is terrible.
Yeah.
Like you could be an
Yeah.
Iranian and think that historically Iran is like a wonderful, long-standing place with wonderful culture and people, and I love it here. But man, the current government's loony. Yeah.
I don't want to muddle it up, but now that he brings up that example, imagine in the middle of the 1800s. And oh, you know, I think of Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, and when she looked at the state of slavery and was like, "Oh my goodness, this is horrible." The seeing something you disagree highly with the system in your country and fighting for it to get better. Like it's possible for her to live in the midst of that system and fight for it to be better. Love your country and be all about it, but be like, "Whoa, this is jacked up." You know, isn't that whole Iranian thing? Because
Yeah. No, I like that concept.
so then what's country? Is it the system and the government? Like, what is that? You know, like if
I know
you're
what you're
disagreeing
saying.
with the politics, what are you loving if you're loving it?
Well, see, I think one of the uniquenesses of America is that we don't have a monolithic cultural identity where an Iranians are technically ethnically Persian.
Okay.
Now there are, because of immigration, others there as well. But that's where it gets muddy, right? Where if you're an Iranian who loves Persian culture,
Okay.
it transcends the current form of government, right? Because
Yeah.
there was the
Yes.
overthrow of the Shah in the late 1970s.
Yeah.
But America's different because we're made up of a whole different group of cultures
Yeah.
and identities.
Yeah.
Therefore, love of country seems to be inseparable from American ideals.
I see.
Maybe?
I see.
I'm thinking out loud.
Um, Lynn says, regarding my patriotism, when traveling abroad, I am so excited to hear an American voice in the crowd, but I'm even more excited to hear a well-known hymn being sung in a foreign tongue by fellow believers.
Yeah, and I think that represents the attitude from the on air we talked about, that for a Christian to be patriotic, our greatest love ought not be our nation, but our Lord.
Oh,
And that ought to be
yeah.
obvious to everyone around us that when the going gets tough, we choose Jesus,
Yeah.
not America first.
Daniel says, yeah, I would not make country synonymous with government. Holy Living on YouTube says, patriotism is defined as the quality of being patriotic, devotion to and vigorous support for one's country. As a Christ follower, our devotion should be to God alone. Also, if there's the belief that the United States is the best country, it can mean a lot of missionaries go to different countries with the purpose of bringing the gospel of the United States and not Jesus.
Yeah, and that was one of the mistakes in colonialism, of bringing, like, making synonymous Western culture with Christian theology, and melting those two and trying to force other cultures to reject not just their faith but their culture.
So exceptionalism, doesn't it create that? If I want to make you better and if I want to serve you, then you would look more like me and function more like me.
I think missionaries would tell you that that's not how you do it. You don't try to make anyone look like you in terms of your cultural norms. What you do is you help them conform to Christ
Yeah.
in the context of their culture.
I want to get to Sarah's comment because, yes, she says also, this may surprise you, but people from other countries also see the United States as not healthy. They see that Americans are not as family oriented, not as community oriented. Children are disrespectful, too materialistic. So they may want to visit Disney, but they may want to stay in their own country where they are able to live the values they hold. That's the thing. You don't. When we went to DR, it stood out to Len. We were watching the news, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, it's like way different to what we see in the United States." And I think we assume a lot of stuff here. We're over here talking about we're amazing, and it's the best place. And you can visit other countries and realize the world isn't looking at us and saying, "Oh, that's the place." Like it's it. They're not all doing that. And I think we can walk around thinking that, like Sarah says.
Yeah.
Sue says, I thank God that my great-grandfather and mother left Germany when they did, fleeing Hitler. Oh, what a story. And had America to come to. Otherwise, I wouldn't be an American who serves and belongs to God in the freedom America gives. My German relatives loved America for giving them that freedom and place to thrive and live for God. And Janet says,
I can't argue with that.
our pastor's doing a countercultural series. It's Jesus.
Yeah, because Christians ought to be countercultural. Our culture is uniquely defined by our faith in Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't
good
know.
stuff.
It's a weird conversation. Because
Something
I
to think
know
about.
We define patriotism differently. People do.
But that's the problem, right? We don't have a common definition.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think you're helping us see that there are different ways to look at it than what maybe secular America says.
Yeah.
And as Christians, our priorities ought to be different. I really like Ken on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
How he
what
was-
was it especially that you liked?
Well, he's not saying don't ever think America's exceptional. American exceptionalism is inherently just fine.
Okay. Yeah.
It's almost what you do with it
Yeah.
and how you communicate it to others.
Yeah.
And I think that really, that's a heart issue.
Yeah.
So it's me saying, wow, I think America really is exceptional. I could even say, I think American government and our ideological framework is really the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But doesn't mean yours is terrible.
Yeah.
Yours is great too, just
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's okay to say that, right? Because what you don't want is someone to go, we're best, and everybody else is first loser.
Yeah. Really.
And if you all were more like us, you'd all be better.
Yeah. And I can hear somebody else say, no, I feel we're the best, and be good with that. Like, I think Dominican Republic is amazing. I could stand next to an Ecuadorian that says, no, we're amazing, and be like, oh, that's cool, and cheer for that, and be like, I want people to be proud of where they are and believe it and be good. I don't have to be number one or have convinced people that I'm number one.
Now, is that because you are an immigrant, or is that because you love Jesus? What's the source of that?
It's not because that part is
It's
not
informed
because,
by your status as an immigrant.
It is informed
Because
by-
you've lived somewhere else, or you've seen somewhere
right,
else.
and I've seen nationalism and patriotism differently. In other countries, it doesn't look or sound the same way as ours. And so because I've seen that and seen, wow, you can be completely proud and not say, no, but that means we're number one in the world, and it could still be patriotism. You said, I think this is informed a lot, or more informed if you travel more and see more systems of government and talk to different people. I think patriotism, is formed a lot by that, your experiences around the world.
It is. Like, I could honestly say that, I really do think America is an exceptional place. Mm-hmm. But I've traveled a lot, and I could tell you there's a lot of other places I could live where I'd be really happy.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's
and
good.
I'd feel like it's a great place to live.
Yeah.
Sarah
says there are going to be all ethnicities in heaven.
That's
right.
right.
And a whole lot of nations, and everybody's going to be awesome. Daniel says World Cup patriotism. Every country is exceptional unless they're up against mine. That's cool.
All right,
Thank
peeps.
you, Ken, for your comments, and everybody.
Holy Living,
and
thank
Holy
you.
Living. Thank you, Sarah and Mike. Great comments. Daniel and Danella. Thank you, guys. And Lynn, thank you for commenting.
All right.